My name is Clara and I am 34 years old. My life is lived in the spaces between worlds. By day, in the eyes of my family, I am a quiet disappointment, a woman with a sharp mind and a master's degree in literature who has inexplicably chosen to play with toys in the attic of her parents' house. But by night, and in the secret, thriving corners of the internet, I am known only as the chronicler. And in that world, I am not a disappointment. I am a queen. My kingdom is one of paper and ink, of intricate maps drawn with a cartographer's precision of history so deep and complex they could fill a university library. I am a world builder. I create the settings, the lore, the characters, and the epic adventures for tabletop role-playing games. Games like Dungeons and Dragons, but my own. From my attic studio, a room crammed with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, drafting tables, and the soft glow of multiple monitors, I have launched fleets of airships, chronicled the fall of ancient empires, and breathed life into gods and monsters. To my family, this is all just noise. The true hero of our household, the one destined for greatness, is my younger brother, Ethan. At 30, Ethan is the founder of Aura, a lifestyle brand that sells minimalist, aesthetically pleasing objects to people with more money than sense. He sells $20 glass straws, $100 yoga mats made of ethically sourced cork, and $300 beige sweatshirts with the word BRET embroidered on them in a slightly different shade of beige. He is handsome, charming, and has the unwavering, uncritical support of our parents. My father, a retired financial advisor who values tangible assets and a strong portfolio, sees Ethan's brand as a modern-day empire in the making. He doesn't understand the business model, but he understands the glossy photos and the thousands of followers Ethan has on social media. That's where the world is heading, Clara, he'd say, looking at me over his reading glasses with a sigh of pity. Branding. Perception. Your brother gets it. He's building equity. My mother, a woman whose self-worth is deeply tied to the perceived success of her children, is Ethan's biggest cheerleader. She is the unpaid, unofficial head of his PR department. Every minor achievement of his is magnified and broadcast to her network of friends and relatives. Ethan's new water bottle was featured on a blog with 50,000 readers. She would announce, as if he had just won a Nobel Prize. He's a true visionary. My work, my passion, was treated as a source of mild embarrassment, a strange developmental delay I had never quite outgrown. When I tried to explain the intricacies of a political system I had designed for a fantasy city-state, a system that had received praise in online forums for its realism and depth, my father cut me off. James, Clara, it's games. When are you going to put that brain of yours to use in the real world? The real world was a place where Ethan's failures were reframed as learning experiences, and my successes were completely invisible. When Ethan's first venture, a line of artisanal dog biscuits, went bankrupt, my parents mortgaged their home to give him the seed money for Aura. It was a strategic pivot. When I received my first five-figure payment for a freelance world-building contract with a European game publisher, I used it to pay off my student loans. When I told my parents, my mother's only comment was, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Did you hear Ethan is thinking of getting a new logo?" My accomplishments were consistently dismissed, ignored, or criticized, a classic sign of being the family scapegoat. I want to take a moment here. If you've ever poured your entire heart and soul into creating something, whether it's a piece of art, a business, a garden, or even just a well-crafted spreadsheet, and had the people you love look at it like it's nothing, then you know the specific sting I'm talking about. It's a feeling that can make you doubt your own worth. If you're feeling that connection, please hit the like button to let me know I'm not alone. Comment below and tell me about your passion, the thing you build in your own attic. And if you know someone else who needs to feel seen, please share this story with them. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see how this epic campaign ends. Your support is the best kind of critical hit. I lived a double life. In the attic, I was the chronicler, a creator with a massive following on Patreon, a bustling Discord community, and a reputation for creating the most immersive and detailed TTRPG content available. My self-published campaign setting, The Shattered Isles, had sold over 200,000 digital copies. The income from my work was substantial, carefully funneled into a business account and a portfolio of investments my father would have killed to manage. I paid my parents a token amount for rent and utilities, allowing them to maintain their narrative of me as their dependent, slightly pathetic daughter. Their willful ignorance was the perfect camouflage. It allowed me to work, to build, to create my worlds in peace. The peace was shattered, as it always was, by Ethan. He had secured an opportunity to open a 3-month Aura pop-up shop in a trendy, high-rent district downtown. It was, he claimed, the opportunity that would finally make his brand profitable and attract major investors. The only problem was that he was, as usual, completely broke. The deposit for the retail space alone was $50,000. The emergency family dinner was convened on a grim, rainy Sunday. The tension in the room was palpable. Ethan looked pale and desperate. My parents looked like they were attending a funeral. "We just don't have it, son," my father said, his voice heavy with defeat. "The mortgage is as high as it can go. The retirement accounts are nearly empty. There's nothing left to give." "But this is it! This is the final push!" Ethan pleaded, his voice cracking. "Everything I've worked for depends on this. There has to be something." My mother, her face etched with worry, wrung her hands. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for some forgotten asset, some hidden treasure that could be sacrificed for her golden child. And then, her gaze drifted upwards, towards the attic. "Towards my kingdom. Clara," she said, her voice soft and hesitant. "Your collection." I felt a jolt, a surge of pure, cold adrenaline. She wasn't talking about my work. She was talking about my library. My collection of first edition game books, of rare, out-of-print modules from the 70s and 80s, of hand-painted metal miniatures from artists long since retired. It was one of the most extensive private collections in the country. To me, it was priceless, a museum of my passion's history. To them, it was a dusty pile of old books and lead toys. "What about it?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "It's worth money, isn't it?" My father jumped in, the spark of a terrible idea igniting in his eyes. "You've said so yourself. Those old games are collectible now. There are people who would pay a lot for that stuff." "It's not stuff, Dad. It's my research library. It's my inspiration. It's a goldmine sitting in our attic while your brother's future hangs in the balance," he retorted, his voice rising. "We're not asking you to give us the money, Clara. We're asking you to sell those toys and lend the money to your brother. It's a family investment." Ethan, seeing a lifeline, pounced. "Please, Clara. It would be a loan. I'll pay you back as soon as the pop-up takes off, I swear. With interest. Think of it. You'd be an investor in my brand." The absurdity of it was breathtaking. They wanted me to liquidate my history to fund his vapid, beige-colored future. They wanted me to tear down my library to build him a temple of consumerism. The dynamic was clear: the scapegoat's assets were to be sacrificed for the golden child's needs. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it landed in the center of the room with the force of a physical blow. My father's face turned a deep, dangerous shade of red. "What did you say?" I said no, I repeated, my voice gaining strength. "That collection is not for sale." "It is not your decision?" he roared, slamming his fist on the table. "You live under my roof! That collection is in my house! For years, we have supported you and your childish fantasies. We have given you a place to live, food to eat, while you contribute nothing of real value. Now, the family needs something from you, and you say no. This is our home, Amelia," my mother added, her voice trembling with manipulative tears. "We are a family. And in a family, we make sacrifices for each other." The hypocrisy was suffocating. I looked at their faces, united in their righteous indignation. They had sacrificed nothing for me. They had only ever tolerated me. "This is the deal," my father said, his voice low and menacing. "You will sell that collection. You will have the money ready for your brother in 1 month. If you refuse, then you can consider your free ride over. You will find another place to live and another place to store your junk. You have 30 days. The ultimatum. The final, desperate power play of a family system on the verge of collapse. They thought they were putting me in an impossible position. Sell my soul, or be cast out. But as I sat there, a strange thing happened. The fear I should have felt was replaced by an exhilarating sense of liberation. They had just handed me the key to my own cage. For years, I had stayed out of a sense of misplaced duty, and perhaps a deep-seated, childish fear of leaving the only home I'd ever known. Now, they were kicking me out. They were setting me free. I thought about the contract I had signed just last week, the one that was sitting in a fireproof safe in my studio. The contract with Wanderlust Games, the largest and most successful TTRPG company in the world. The contract that made me the lead creator and executive producer of their next generation, multi-platform fantasy franchise. The contract that came with a seven-figure advance and a percentage of global profits. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated relief. Okay, I said, my voice light and airy. 30 days. I understand completely. I stood up from the table, my appetite gone, replaced by a hunger for the future. Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was delicious. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them in a state of stunned silence. They thought my smile was the sign of a broken spirit, of a daughter finally bending to their will. They had no idea it was the smile of a queen who was about to leave her provincial castle behind to go and rule her empire. The game was on. My attic, for the next 4 weeks, became a command center operating on a war footing. The first email I sent that Sunday night was to my agent and dear friend, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in London named Genevieve. The subject line was a single word: execute. Genevieve, who had been urging me to step into the light for years, replied in minutes. At last, she wrote, the dragons are being unleashed. The plan we had codenamed Project Chimera was a multi-pronged strategy I had been developing for over a year. It was my exit strategy, my declaration of independence, and my magnum opus, all rolled into one. The first phase was securing a new kingdom. I spent all of Monday on encrypted video calls with a commercial real estate broker in Seattle, a city with a thriving tech and gaming scene. I described my needs: a large, open-plan live-work loft, preferably in a converted industrial building, with robust fiber optic internet and the kind of anonymity that only a bustling city can provide. By Tuesday, I had a shortlist. By Friday, I had made a full cash offer on a stunning top-floor unit in a former printing press, a space with 20-foot ceilings, massive windows, and more than enough room for my library and a state-of-the-art creation studio. The offer was accepted within the hour. The second phase was the logistics of the move itself. My collection was not just books and miniatures, it was an archive. It required specialists. I hired a company that usually handled rare book collections for universities and museums. Their team was discreet, professional, and, most importantly, completely uninterested in family drama. They would arrive in 3 weeks, on a Tuesday, when my parents were at their weekly bridge club and Ethan was at his networking yoga class. They would pack and transport my entire attic kingdom in a single, surgical operation. The final, and most crucial, phase of the plan was the announcement. For months, I had been in secret, high-level negotiations with Wanderlust Games, the undisputed titan of the tabletop RPG industry. They were the creators of Ethereum, the game that had defined a generation. Now, they were looking to launch their next great franchise, a successor to their flagship title. And they wanted me to build it. The contract, which I had signed the previous week, was the largest in the industry's history. It made me the lead world architect and executive producer of the untitled project, giving me unprecedented creative control. It also came with a 7-figure advance that had already been wired to my business account. Wanderlust Games had been planning a massive announcement at Wandergsauen, their annual convention in Las Vegas, which was, by a perfect stroke of fate, scheduled for the final weekend of my 30-day ultimatum. My conversation with their marketing director was brief and to the point. I was ready to be revealed. The chronicler was ready to have a name. While I was orchestrating this grand maneuver, life in the house became a masterclass in psychological warfare. My family, believing they had won a decisive victory, treated me with a cloying, condescending pity. My mother would leave articles on my bed about finding your purpose after 40, or turning hobbies into a small side income. She thought she was being helpful. I know you're upset, dear, she'd say, patting my hand at the dinner table. But sometimes, we have to let go of childish things to make room for adult responsibilities. Your father and I are so proud of the sacrifice you're making for Ethan. Ethan, meanwhile, was living in a fantasy world of his own. He had already started designing his pop-up shop on his laptop, showing us mock-ups of a sterile, beige room filled with his overpriced, soulless products. He treated the $50,000 from the sale of my collection as if it were already in his bank account. "I've been thinking, Clara," he said one evening, looking at me with the magnanimous air of a king addressing a court jester. "When I pay you back, I'll give you an extra 10%. You can use it to buy a few new dice, or whatever it is you like." "That's very thoughtful, Ethan," I said, my voice a perfect, placid lake under which leviathans swam. They saw me in the attic, surrounded by packing boxes, and assumed I was dismantling my life. They didn't realize I was consolidating my power. They saw me on the phone, speaking in low, serious tones, and thought I was haggling with buyers over the price of a rare game book. They had no idea I was discussing multi-million-dollar marketing budgets and international launch strategies. Their underestimation of me was so complete, so absolute, that it had become my greatest asset. It was the ultimate invisibility cloak. The work I did during those weeks was the most intense of my life. I was not just packing, I was creating. I was putting the final touches on the Reader's Bible for the new Wanderlust franchise. A 500-page tome detailing 1,000 years of history, the pantheon of gods, the mechanics of magic, and the political landscape of a new world. It was the culmination of everything I had ever learned, every world I had ever built. It was my masterpiece. The day the movers came was a marvel of efficiency. My family left the house at 10 a.m. The truck, large and unmarked, arrived at 10:15. A team of 6 quiet, careful professionals in white gloves ascended to the attic. For 5 hours, they worked, packing my library into custom-built, climate-controlled crates and carefully wrapping my maps and drafting equipment. By 3:30, the attic was empty. It was a hollow, echoing space, stripped of its magic. It looked smaller, sadder. When my family returned at 4, the truck was gone. I was sitting in the living room, reading a book. "Did you get much packed, dear?" my mother asked. "I made significant progress," I replied, which was the truth. The final weekend arrived. WonderCom. My father, in a final act of paternal authority, had demanded an update. "I expect to see a full accounting of the sales by Monday, Clara. Ethan needs to sign the lease for the pop-up. You'll have your answer on Sunday night," I promised him. On Saturday, I flew to Las Vegas. I checked into a suite at the Bellagio under my own name. That evening, I met with the executive team from Wanderlust Games. We went over the final details for the keynote presentation the next day. They were nervous, excited. The entire industry was waiting to see what they would announce. Back home, my family was oblivious. I had told them I was visiting an old college friend for the weekend. Sunday afternoon. The main hall at the Las Vegas Convention Center was electric. 10,000 fans, a sea of roaring, passionate gamers, were packed into the auditorium. The lights dimmed. The presentation began. The CEO of Wanderlust Games, a charismatic man named David Chen, walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. He spoke about the legacy of Ethereum, about the future of gaming, and then he began to build the hype for their next great project. "For 5 years," he said, his voice booming through the sound system, "we have been searching for a new voice, a new architect, a creator with a vision so singular, so profound, that it could redefine the genre for the next generation. We found that creator in the one place true magic is always found in the passionate, dedicated community of players and creators." He paused, letting the anticipation build. "Many of you know this creator by their online handle. You have read their work, you have explored their worlds. You know them as the Chronicler." A massive gasp went through the auditorium. My online name was legendary. The idea that Wanderlust had partnered with an independent creator of my stature was a seismic shock to the industry. "For the last year," David continued, "we have been working in secret with the Chronicler to build a new universe. And today, we are thrilled to announce that project. We call it Viridian Legacy." The massive screens behind him exploded with art. Breathtaking landscapes, fearsome monsters, and epic heroes, all brought to life by the world's best concept artists, all based on my designs. The crowd went insane. "And now," David said, his voice dropping to a dramatic hush, "for the first time ever, I would like to introduce you to the mind behind the magic, the architect of Viridian Legacy. Please welcome, Clara." I walked out from the wings, into a blinding wall of light and a deafening roar of applause. I stepped up to the podium, my heart hammering not with fear, but with a feeling of profound, earth-shattering arrival. I looked out at the 10,000 faces, my people, my community. And then I looked directly into the main broadcast camera, the one that was Lev, streaming this event to hundreds of thousands of people around the world, including, I knew, my brother Ethan, who was an avid follower of all things wanderlust. I smiled. "Hello, everyone," I said. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." Back in Ohio, Ethan was in his bedroom, watching the live stream on his laptop, his jaw hanging open. My parents were in the living room, watching a Sunday afternoon movie, oblivious. Ethan let out a strangled cry. He grabbed his laptop and ran downstairs. "Mom! Dad! You have to see this!" he yelled, his voice a mixture of awe and horror. He burst into the living room and thrust the laptop in front of them. On the screen, they saw me. Not the quiet, mousy daughter from the attic. They saw a confident, poised woman on a massive stage, being hailed as a creative genius. They saw the name, Clara, under the title, creator and executive producer. They heard the roar of the crowd. My father stared at the screen, his face turning a pale, ashen gray. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. That can't be Elle," she whispered. On the screen, I was now answering questions from the host. "Clara," the host was saying, "the scope of this world is staggering. The history, the lore, it's a lifetime of work. How did you do it all?" I smiled again, a knowing, private smile that was broadcast to the world. "Well," I said, "it helps when you have a very quiet attic, a lot of old books, and a family who thinks you're just playing childish games. It gives you a lot of uninterrupted time to build empires." The audience laughed, thinking it was a clever, self-deprecating joke, but in a quiet living room in Ohio, it landed like a bomb. The live stream from WonderCon continued to play on the laptop, but no one in the living room was watching it anymore. The sound of my voice, confident and articulate, discussing the intricacies of the Viridian Legacy's magic system, filled the suffocating silence. It was a voice they had never heard before. The daughter they knew was quiet, hesitant, and apologetic. This woman on the screen was a stranger, a commander of worlds, and she was wearing my face. My father was the first to recover, his financial advisor's mind frantically trying to process the new data and rebalance the portfolio of his family's identity. He muted the laptop, plunging the room into a stark, ringing silence. "A 7-figure advance," he said, the words tasting foreign and unbelievable in his mouth. He wasn't asking a question, he was stating a fact he had just heard me confirm on the live stream. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed, not with pride, but with the sharp, calculating gaze of a man who realizes he has catastrophically misjudged the value of an asset. "Clara, is this real?" "It's real, Dad," I said, my voice even. "All this time," my mother whispered, her hand still at her mouth. "All this time you were up in that attic. You were making that kind of money." The shame in her voice was palpable, but it was a selfish shame, born not of empathy for my years of feeling invisible, but of the sudden, horrifying realization of her own blindness. Ethan, however, bypassed shame and went straight to rage. The golden child, faced with the undeniable, spectacular success of the family scapegoat, could only process it as a personal attack. "You lied to us!" he shouted, his face contorted in a mask of furious betrayal. "You sat there, day after day, letting us think you were a failure. You let us worry about money. You let us mortgage the house for my business, while you were sitting on a fortune. What kind of sick game is that?" "It wasn't a game, Ethan," I said, my voice remaining calm, a stark contrast to his hysteria. "It was my life, a life you were never interested in. When was the last time you asked me a single, genuine question about what I do in that attic? You didn't want to know. Because knowing would have disrupted the family narrative. The one where you were the brilliant, struggling entrepreneur and I was the weird, unambitious spinster. My failure was a necessary part of your success story." My words, a truth I had never dared to speak aloud, hit him like a physical blow. He recoiled, speechless. My father, seeing the argument shifting away from the tangible reality of money, tried to regain control. He stood up, puffing out his chest, attempting to reassert his patriarchal authority. "That's enough. What's done is done. The important thing is that we are a family. Clara, this is wonderful news. A bit of a shock, of course, but wonderful. We are so incredibly proud of you." It was a masterful performance. In the space of 30 seconds, he had pivoted from disbelief to paternal pride, seamlessly attempting to absorb my success into the family's collective identity, an identity that had, until 5 minutes ago, completely excluded me. We need to celebrate, my mother chimed in, seizing the new narrative with desperate relief. We'll have a party. We'll invite all our friends. We can finally tell them what our brilliant daughter really does. Ethan, seeing the new direction the wind was blowing, also made a desperate pivot. The anger vanished, replaced by a rapacious, calculating gleam in his eyes. Clara, this is incredible. This changes everything. That 50,000 for the pop-up, that's nothing to you now. You could be a silent partner in Aura. Think of it, a family business? With your capital and my brand, we could be unstoppable. I looked at them, this trio of opportunists, as they scrambled to rewrite 2 decades of history. They were like characters in one of my games, frantically trying to change their alignment at the last minute to avoid the consequences of their actions. They weren't proud of me. They were proud of my money. They didn't love me. They loved what I could now do for them. The praise, the favor, the sudden inclusion, it was all contingent on my success. And in that moment, I felt the last, stubborn vestiges of my need for their approval turn to dust and blow away. The scapegoat, contrary to what they believe, is often the one who sees the family dynamics most clearly, because they have to for survival. No, I said again. But this no was different from the one I had uttered a month ago. That one was a shield. This one was a sword. There will be no party, I said, my voice as sharp and clear as a diamond. There will be no family business. And there will be no $50,000 loan. The answer I gave you a month ago is still the answer today. The collection is not for sale. But you don't need to sell it now, my father sputtered. You can just write Ethan a check. You still don't get it, I said, a sad, wary smile touching my lips. This was never about the money. It was about respect. You demanded I liquidate my passion, my history, to fund his hobby. You gave me an ultimatum, my soul, or the street. And you were so certain I would choose to stay in your shadow that you never once considered a third option. What third option? My mother asked, her voice trembling. That I would build my own damn castle, I said. You told me I had 30 days to get my junk out of your house. I have complied. My junk is gone. My library is in a climate-controlled storage facility, waiting to be shipped to my new home in Seattle. My work is at Wanderlust Games. And I am leaving. I stood up and walked over to the hallway closet, where my single suitcase and backpack were waiting. I had packed them that morning. You're really leaving? My mother sobbed, the reality finally crashing down on her. But where will you go? I told you. Seattle. I bought a loft. It's twice the size of this entire floor. My studio will have a view of the city. I will have a life, a community of people who see me, who respect my work. I will have peace. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and picked up my suitcase. I walked to the front door. Clara, wait. My father called out, his voice cracking with a desperation I had never heard before. Don't do this? We're your family. We love you. I paused at the door, my hand on the knob, and looked back at them. You love the idea of me now, I said, my voice soft but unwavering. You love the successful daughter, the one who can solve your financial problems and give you bragging rights. But you never loved the real me. The quiet girl in the attic. The one who just wanted you to read one of her stories, just once, and see the magic in it. You can't love a person you've never even bothered to see. I opened the door. The cool night air felt like a promise. Goodbye, I said. I stepped outside and closed the door on the silent, shocked faces of the family I was leaving behind. I didn't look back. The car I had booked was waiting at the curb. As it pulled away, I saw the lights of my parents' house recede in the rearview mirror, shrinking until it was just another anonymous house on an anonymous street. It was no longer my home. It was just a place I used to know. My new life in Seattle was everything I had ever dreamed of. The loft was a cathedral of creativity, with my library lining one entire wall, a testament to the history and passion that had brought me here. I spent my days working with the brilliant team at Wanderlust Games, collaborating with artists and writers, my ideas not just heard, but celebrated. The loneliness that had been my constant companion for so long was replaced by the vibrant, chaotic energy of shared creation. I had found my tribe. Viridian Legacy launched a year later to unprecedented success. It shattered every sales record in the history of tabletop gaming. It became a cultural phenomenon, spawning novels, comic books, and a bidding war for the film and television rights. My name, Clara, was no longer a secret. It was a brand, a symbol of intricate, imaginative world building. I heard through the grapevine that Ethan's aura brand had quietly folded a few months after I left. Without the constant infusion of my parents' cash and the prospect of my own, his beautiful, empty brand collapsed under the weight of its own vapidity. The last I heard, he was working as a manager at a high-end furniture store, selling beige minimalism to other people. My parents stayed in the house. They tried to call a few times, but I didn't answer. Genevieve, my agent, informed them politely but firmly that all future communications should go through her. They were left in their quiet, empty nest, with a golden child who had tarnished and a scapegoat who had flown away. The dysfunctional system, with its key players removed, had simply ceased to function. I am not telling this story out of bitterness or a need for revenge. I am telling it as a testament to the unseen worlds that live inside all of us. The worlds we build in attics and basements, in quiet moments before dawn, in the pages of notebooks and the lines of code. These worlds are not childish games. They are not junk. They are the architecture of our souls. Sometimes, the people closest to us are the last to see our true value. They are too close, blinded by the roles they have cast us in. The responsible one, the difficult one, the dreamer, the failure. But their perception is not your reality. Your worth is not determined by their approval. It is forged in the quiet hours you spend owning your craft, building your kingdom, becoming the hero of your own story. Thank you for letting me share my world with you. If this story resonated with the architect, the creator, or the dreamer inside of you, please show your support by hitting the like button and share it with anyone who might be building their own empire in secret. I truly want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me about the world you are building. What is your Viridian legacy? And if you want more tales of epic adventures and quiet victories, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. The next chapter is always just beginning.